Hello, everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of Rockstar Interviews from Beyond with Prince. And here's Veronica Drake, and she is our illustrious channel to connect with Prince. And hey, Veronica.
Hi, Nora.
Hi. So we're thrilled to get back into it. We've been talking a lot about some really cool things, so I definitely encourage you to see part 1. And in part 2, we're going to talk a bit about Prince and the other side and the spirit realm and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned. So Prince, did you have a process or technique or ritual that you like to ease yourself into to get the musical juices flowing?
He loved meditation. He's saying,
Cool.
I could instantly find a place, no matter how loud it was or how crowded it was, and I could instantly disconnect and reconnect to something higher.
Wow.
And I had the ability to use my body, use my feelings to interpret messages that I was getting.
Oh, wow. So say more about that. That's really interesting.
So, for instance, when I knew that it was time to birth a song, I would get signs, I would get feelings, I would just almost live the song first and then go pen the lyrics to it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I never really had trouble writing music because it was a natural gift because I was born a storyteller. Now, a lot of those stories, some might say were, fiction, but there was always a reality to them for me.
Wow, that's really...
And I never knew what my favorite song was going to be that I'd written because I was always looking and projecting for the next song. And so I'd always say, the next one will be the best one. The next one will be the best one.
Oh my gosh, I have so many favorite songs of yours. Do you have a favorite of yours?
He's saying it's just absolutely impossible to pick a favorite, when the catalog is so big. But he's saying, beat-wise, he loves the song Kiss. And he loves the song. And he said there's such a direct connection to how he felt to the song Purple Rain. So very connected to that.
So this song, Girlfriend, If I Was Your Girlfriend, I think that's how it's worded. If I Was Your Girlfriend, that's where he does some of his sort of gender bending stuff, in addition to just saying, listen, if I was your girlfriend, we could just hang out and do all those fun things that only girlfriends can do. And he had such a soft, tender side, but it was also an incredibly seductive song too. And he had songs like that where you're hearing the story of just wanting to be like one of the girls, but knowing that it's like intimacy. It's like your way of expressing the desire to have intimacy in a relationship. I mean, that's my interpretation anyway.
Well, and he's also saying it's how he showed his comfortableness with he's saying undefined sexuality. And he's saying that he could just as easily hang with the girls as he could with the guys. And he could just as easily be intimate with the women and also just still be intimate with the guys, but not in a complete sexual way. So while there wasn't that sexual intimacy with men also desired him, he says.
Oh, for sure.
And not just, he's saying not just gay men, men wanted to emulate the and he has no arrogance around saying that. He's not, there's no ego there at all. He's very confident of who he was. Very confident.
Well, I can see that. I mean, he had so much charisma and comfort, and I think people in general, especially in this current time, where I mean, we're moving forward as a culture where there's not so much stigma around sexual orientation and gender, even. But Prince did it effortlessly. You know, there was just no, like, it didn't matter. It was just this dynamic, clearly artistic, clearly sensual being, and it was sort of like he could just handle it all. And I'm sure men and women both love to have fantasies about him.
He's saying that his videos, his being will be kind of like a tutorial of sorts for people who are struggling with gender identity. And he's saying that his mission with those videos and being who he was that he could leave a legacy of being comfortable any which way and not really having a label on it.
Right. It was so good. And you were so comfortable in your skin. I think that is the authenticity that you conveyed. And it's interesting that you were such a perfectionist, because maybe there was a part of you that felt like that you were trying to communicate through your performances that would ease other people's suffering. I don't know. What do you think?
I knew the message was big.
Yeah.
I knew I was here to be the carrier of a big message. And I knew that I was going to be, he's using the word legend, and that it was going to be carried on and on and on. And I felt like if it was going to ever be over, the project that is, that it needed to be signed, sealed with perfection. He's saying how many times he went back and just tore down and redid. And he's saying there is more stuff probably than he did left undone that hasn't been distributed. So I would assume that means there's a lot that could be released if it. He doesn't want that, though.
Yeah, you don't. I can't imagine why you would, because you want it to be the way that you had your sign of approval. So let's talk about your review. When, was it immediately after you left the Earth plane, or what happened after you said you stuck around? What happened next?
He's saying there's no concept of time. So as far as could I tell you it was an hour or 2 days, he goes, I don't know how to put it into human terms. He's saying there is a process to it, but not everybody gets the same process. So he's saying if he were to make it understandable to us, he would put it in terms of a month. So, you know, and he's getting that wisdom from I don't know where that wisdom comes from, but he's saying it would be a month. Go ahead.
Well, so was there healing that took place once you went into the spirit realm from the Earth plane? Did you have did you join up with your soul group? Did you, what happened? What was the sequence of events?
He's saying that there wasn't the word healing. He won't use the word healing.
Okay.
There was revelation.
Okay.
There was revelation. So because it was really about, did I do what I said I would come here to do? It was almost like he was going in front of as he's calling it, the academy.
Okay.
In front of the academy, and they would have an outline, and he would say, okay, I did this, and they would he's saying in human terms, grade him. And then it would be put back in his court, ultimately, how do you feel you did with this?
Right.
And so he could write the next card for the next life.
Right. So were there things that you feel like you achieved in a way that you really wanted to, and things maybe that you didn't achieve that you perhaps would like to in a next life?
He's saying he really would have loved to have been a father. And he's acknowledging that he is a father, but he would have loved the experience of raising a child.
Yeah.
What he's saying.
Yeah. So is the spirit of your son with you? Are you with your child?
Yes, the energy that was my child is here.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, he's saying that was a very prominent greeter.
Oh, how fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And he said it was an instant familiarity, like he just had known that he had known this energy. It was just like a coming home. But he does, and he also would like to think that he could have a better handle on control issues in the next life. Being so controlling was very demanding emotionally on himself.
I'm sure.
He is someone, he's saying, that required solitude to recharge. But if you can imagine, how does Prince get solitude, he says.
Right.
Because the world that I created underground, my world, was 24/7. He's liking it to being in a casino. You don't know if it's light or it's dark.
Right.
The world just operated. I didn't live on real people's schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. That had to have been really draining to the physical body, I'd imagine.
Yes, yes. He's also saying what was very draining, and he's very forthcoming with this. What was very draining was the fact that he had to hide this addiction, as he's calling it.
And was that, just for clarification purposes, is that primarily painkillers?
Yes, only painkillers.
Yeah, yeah. It really is so hard to quit painkillers. They're so addictive.
And he's saying, it was extremely easy to get anything he wanted.
And how did you get things that you wanted? Just people would, doctors would just give them to you?
He's saying that there were multitudes of ways people would get them from reputable sources for him. He never really actually, towards the end, got his own. Everything was gotten for him.
You really were like a prince. You really, it almost sounds like you could be this type of, like this kind of a leader in any time frame and still have this level of offering of community providing, like how, people provide to their kings and
He says he was worshipped and that was wrong.
From his point of view, it was wrong. Say more about that.
He's saying because it conflicts with who you should worship. I'm not a god, he says. I wasn't a god. But he's also honest to admit that how could power not get in the way and you lose sight of the fact that you are human? It can become very difficult. He's saying he cannot ever say there was anything quote unquote regular about him.
Right. Yeah, so it would be really hard to have a regular interpretation of your life. So in the soul review time frame, is there a way of reconciling that interpretation in a way that is helpful to your soul's growth?
He's saying, it's processed through what we call, and I think it's like tongue in cheek, but he's saying soul school. You go to school, you go to school to learn things. Things are brought to your awareness that you really don't know about. And then there's somebody, the teacher, to teach you how to deal with that. And he's calling it that awareness. So there are older souls, spirits, guides, people that are just assigned, energies that are just assigned, he's saying, to be the person to teach you through that. Because once you have a firm understanding of that, you then have to process it so that you can bring it back if you need to in your next life. He said sometimes it gets processed, and it's just, if it's instant enough, the soul can absorb it and say, okay, I learned it. I don't need to carry this back with me.
Was there anything that you learned in this lifetime that was a part of a learning from previous lifetimes? Something that you had to accomplish that was a part of something that you wanted to learn from a previous lifetime?
He's saying there's not one definable thing. He's saying because everything is like a chain, he said. Everything, and he's kind of doing this, everything is linked together. Everything is linked together. Every time, every reincarnation, every non-reincarnation is all linked together. There's no ending and there's no beginning. Interesting.
Yeah, that, and I've heard that before, and that is super duper cool. And that's where the collective comes in.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I'm just saying he's a very interesting energy, and he's very, but still, it's kind of, for me, the medium, it's kind of like pulling teeth, because I don't know that he's controlling the interview, but he is very careful with what's released.
Why do you feel, is there something that you're wanting to talk about that we're not covering, Prince?
He said one of the things he really wants people to know is that you need to be true to who you are, and that you need not wear labels. And he's referring to, I think, something that went awry with his label, his literal record label. And he's saying there's always a loophole.
So yeah, he's referring to, for a while he stopped referring to himself by his name and was just referring to himself as this symbol, and it's known, I think, as the love symbol, but it's a very distinct shape, and he would have that on his albums, and I don't totally understand, except for that there was the contracts that were binding him. The loophole was his name, is my assumption, and so he could use the symbol and still not have to agree to the terms of the contract. Do I have that right?
Yes, he's saying absolutely. I took what I owned and changed it because I could. So
that was a badass move for sure.
Yeah, he's referring to his name. He's also in terms of music, he's saying that there's so much ripoff in terms of the industry and how things get out before they should. And he's saying that it's art, and nobody should be able to do anybody else's art except the original artist. Now, he's not saying you can't do cover tunes. He doesn't mean that. He's saying, like, to take something, because he's talking about music being bastardized, being different than it is originally put out, because people were trying to get the jump on certain things. I'm not sure what he's trying.
Yeah, I think, I mean, are you referring to what is happening to the popular music industry right now, with a lot of the music moguls shaping things and not allowing the artists to have their own expression?
Yes, he's saying expression is extremely important, and there's a lot of emphasis put on money. He said it's always been that way, but it's more so put on the money, and the reality is false enhancements are coming in, and there's not a lot of true, this is him saying this, there are not a lot of true musicians
Wow. Are there people that you're keeping an eye on here on Earth that you think are truly talented musicians?
He's saying that I kind of let that part of me go,
Mm-hmm.
saying I'm busy connecting with energies over here, and he's jamming with Muddy Waters
Awesome.
and um, Billie Holiday,
Oh, wow.
Ella Fitzgerald.
I would love to have interviews with them.
And he's also saying Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, Jimmy. You know, I heard a rumor that you were taught guitar by Jimi Hendrix. Is that true?
I hung with him, he says.
Really? Oh my gosh, that is so cool. That is really cool. Oh, Jimmy, we definitely want to invite Jimmy to the show. We're gonna do a whole show on people who died at 27, a series of shows. So what made you the happiest in life, Prince?
My ability to create, my ability to live a free life, my ability to do it my way.
You really were a master in that. I mean, hats off, dude. That was epic. Really epic.
He says if there's anything worth doing, it's worth doing uniquely. You don't need to be somebody else, because there are 7 billion people that are going to just look at it and they're going to love it or they're going to hate it. He goes, you cannot squish what it is that wants to come out of you based on what other people want. And that's why he wasn't going to be a pimp or a whore for the record company.
Wow. Well, you know, one of the questions I have, because you're so talented in this regard, how do people allow themselves to see themselves in a true way? I think there's so much denial and there's so much that we obstruct from our own knowing of who we really are. And do you have any words of wisdom for humanity and people in general regarding that concept of letting you be you?
You know, he says the first thing you have to do is have a clear understanding of who the you is. Like,
Yeah.
who are you when there's nobody looking? What are you all about when the lights go off and the crowd stops cheering, or you're not sitting at your desk job being that? Because you're not those things. You are the energy, the energetic being will tell you who you are. And what happens, he's saying, people get out of alignment with who they are, and that's what causes misery.
Yeah.
And so as you understand that you are not your physical body or your stuff, you are a soul, you are an energy, you will begin to have a deeper understanding of who you are, and therefore you'll be able to live life from that perspective.
So getting honest with ourselves about who we are. It seems to me like you must have done that at a really early age. That must have come kind of naturally to you.
He says he came in knowing that.
Yeah.
He literally says, I came in knowing that. I knew it in my crib.
That's so cute. I would imagine that a lot of people come in knowing and then they forget because of circumstances.
Well, he says they have to forget, because if they don't forget, they don't get the opportunity to use free will. So if they knew exactly where they were going, you know, they would sit down and just know the path. But he says, if you forget where you're going, you have to explore. This is called living life. This is called making creative choices, making free choices. He said, and to be mindful that not everybody gets to do that, to make free choices. And that's something that was really, he's passionate about, is that every individual has the right to live free. So
that is so beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think that if there was any way or words or wisdom that you feel like you could offer our audience, maybe people who are struggling with it, young people, I mean, you've already given a tremendous amount of wisdom. Is there anything else you would say about people who are just saying, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't want to be here?
He's saying to say you don't know why you're here is a cop-out.
Okay.
Because he's saying you ultimately do know why you're here. And he's saying he's saying everybody has the ability to question, why am I here? But it's about the journey, the exploration. So he's saying if people say they don't know why they're here, they're not willing to take the journey to explore a little bit deeper. He's very philosophical in the sense that, you know, everything is very introspective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have to look inside yourself. You have to see, he's showing me like the divine, the gold thread that keeps you connected to the source.
Right. So you can be inspired by amazing performers and musicians like you who were able to find your truth and express it. But really, at the end of the day, it's about who you are individually and then taking the time to honor and get to know whatever that spark of divinity is within you. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And he's saying that the soul is always going to nudge.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to get a feeling, you know, and that feeling, even when you're an 11-year-old boy, you just kind of know that there's something bigger nudging at you. You might not have the words to put to it, but you know there's something bigger calling you.
Right.
And a lot of times kids don't get to fulfill that because there isn't a lot of time for encouragement, or there's not a lot of encouragement because people are so busy racing around trying to figure things out. Whereas if they just sat back, you know, and he's saying this from a control freak, but it's the lesson he learned.
So how do we get the message out there to people, Prince? How do we let them know that even if you're not getting encouragement, let's just still go for it, you guys? Like, what do you have to lose?
He's saying find something that you absolutely get lost in. Maybe it's racing cars, or maybe it's a sport. When you get lost in something, he's saying it's an ignition, it's a start, it's a flare to connecting to something. Now he's also saying the pieces will be dropped in front of you. The biggest thing is awareness. How do you create awareness? I'm asking him, right. How do you create awareness in, let's say, an 11-year-old? You know, he says that, again, it's the pieces. The 11-year-old knows what he likes to do and doesn't like to do. The 3-year-old knows what he likes to do and doesn't like to do. But the 3-year-old doesn't have the developmental skills as the 11-year-old does.
Right. Take notice. Take notice to what you're enjoying, and what you get lost in is what I hear you saying.
Yeah. And he's saying, even as a kid, he was fascinated with sound. It would, you know, even if it was banging pots and pans together or spoons together, or he was fascinated with sounds and the different vibrations and how the sounds impacted and affected his own energetic being.
Uh-huh. Well, it sounds like you have some mastery in that regard as well. And unfortunately, we're out of time, but I would love to have you back at some point to continue this conversation.
Absolutely, he says. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being in our lives still, Prince, and for making yourself available to us and ask you all of these wonderful questions. And thank you so much, Veronica, for being our channel today. And thank you, everyone who's tuning in to us. We love that you're watching our show, and please let the world know about us, and please comment and let us know. You're the reason that we chose Prince today, and so if there's someone else that you'd like to have come through, let us know. And we'll be seeing you next time. Be well. Take good care.
Bye.